2025 is shaping out to be more of a movie year than I thought, because based on like what I was looking forward to coming out, there wasn't a lot that I was looking forward to as much as I had been last year. So I thought I wouldn't be seeing movies as much, but that has totally not been the case, just because I've been trying a lot more movies that I typically wouldn't be gravitating towards just to see what they're like. One of those movies is Mickey 17. I'm not typically a huge sci-fi person, but I was intrigued for multiple reasons. One, Robert Pattinson. I think he's just such a phenomenal actor, and like the trajectory of his career and like the roles he picks I think are just so fascinating and need to be studied. Two, it is based on a book, which I always try and keep an eye out for book to movie adaptations to see if I might be interested in them, just because I always think it's a really cool process seeing how a book goes from where it is in the original book and then how it becomes the movie, how much has changed and stuff like that. I haven't actually read Mickey 7 yet, but one of the biggest differences that you'll notice right away is the title. So the book is called Mickey 7 and there are only 8 Mickeys in that one, whereas in the movie, which is called Mickey 17, there are 10 extra clones added to get us to Mickey 17 and Mickey 18. This was a choice on the director's part, and speaking of the director, that is also another reason that I really wanted to check this one out. It is the follow-up to the Oscar-winning movie Parasite from that director. It's his next movie after that, and I feel like there's always a lot of big hype, particularly after a movie does so well, but also a movie like that that is not like this like obvious studio or kind of obvious choice of what's gonna win, like something that really just feels different and unique, I think is really special. So obviously seeing what that person comes out with next is always really interesting. It was especially for me because as much as I like want to watch Parasite, I just feel like it's not my type of movie. I like movies with a bit of a happier ending. It's just my rule. You know, they have to have a happy or happy-ish ending. So that's why I was really intrigued with Mickey 17 for a variety of reasons, and I was really excited to watch it until about the week that it came out because everyone was kind of saying that it just wasn't that good. So I was again kind of like, ugh, because I also don't really like long movies, which is 2 hours and 17 a long movie? No, but compared to like the hour and 40 minutes, hour and a half movies that we usually get, it felt long, and it felt like I was worried that it would drag, especially because I had just seen a movie that was literally only like an hour and a half, and it literally felt like a drag, because I think it just doesn't matter how long it is or what it's about. If there is parts that don't feel necessary, then it's gonna feel like a movie that drags. Now, the simple explanation for the movie Mickey 17 and the book Mickey 7, if you haven't heard of it yet, and I say simple very loosely because it's still pretty complicated, is that this takes place in a future universe. It's on Earth for the start of it, and it's about a world where we have the ability to clone people. So in the movies particularly, Mickey signs up to be an expendable, which is essentially just like you go out there, you do stuff, you're probably gonna get killed, and then they just make a new clone of you and you get all the memories of the old clone and the original person, and then you just go right back to where you are and do your next thing. So like in the movie, for example, he's the guinea pig of a lot of things, of like diseases and finding out like how long you can go without oxygen, finding out radioactivity, like all this kind of just horrible stuff that like, does science need to know? It's helpful, but also at the same time it's that risk versus cost analysis of like, the point of the clone of if it's like, oh, you're always going to come back, so it doesn't matter what happens to you. Is that morally right, or is that still just kind of an awful thing? And I think the movie definitely looks at that idea of like science as a means of progress versus all else, and how that can really affect humanity. I was really, really anxious, like I said, going to this, because again, not a huge sci-fi person, a little worried it was gonna drag, and just hearing that it was not as good as people were expecting it to be. However, because of my expectations, I think, and not being a huge sci-fi person, this was perfect for me. I really think that a lot of people originally was what I was hearing when the trailer first came out and you got to see that like it seemed a little more goofy, silly, and a little more lighthearted. Robert Pattinson had a little funny voice that he was doing. People were kind of taken aback by that because I think they wanted like a proper sci-fi action-y film, and I feel like I related more to this. Like this is actually more my jam than like a proper action-packed, always stuff happening movie. Like I like the lightheartedness with the message. I like the silly goofiness of it. The characters are kind of ridiculous, but like you still care for them, and the stuff that's happening to them is done in a humorous way, so then when you see like the awful stuff that's happening, it really contrasts it nicely with I think what Mickey's going through. The best part of this movie for me is definitely Robert Pattinson. I had a moment like in the theater because I haven't truly seen him in live action stuff since Twilight, being like, oh my gosh, Robert Pattinson, like a really good actor. Like seeing him act not only as Mickey 17, but Mickey 18, and seeing how they play off each other and how their personalities are different from each other, and even their voices are different from them, their mannerisms are different from each other, was just so incredible to see that kind of tour de force of someone just acting their butt off and doing it so seamlessly and so well. I have to say I was a little more partial to Mickey 18, which I think most people are, just because he's kind of gruff. He's kind of the more like seeing that this is messed up with what's happening to him and being over it and just throwing the punches first, asking the questions later. But I really liked how they kind of intertwined the different Mickeys, because there's one point where like Mickey 17 is like, why are you so angry, or something like that, and Mickey 18 is like, I'm you. So like, bro, this is in you somewhere. Like, I didn't get new memories from when I first existed. Like, this is in you. And I just like that idea of maybe it's like you're more kind of stuff that you push down, since Mickey's very positive and like, you know, the work is what the work is, but like it's all for the greater good, and like he has a job, and that's very much how he looks at it. Seeing the parts of himself that maybe he doesn't want to admit, the parts that are angry at this, and see the unfairness and the unjustness in it, see that actually get to be personified in another clone and have it face to face, was just so cool, and I think such a great message. There are some things I think could have been done better, certainly, and I will say the biggest one for me is I think a lot of the messaging was very heavy-handed. When they had the subtle messaging, like for example, when it was kind of about the different personality sides of the Mickeys, and how it's like this angry Mickey is still a part of this very happy-go-lucky, positive Mickey that we have, and kind of realizing that like he might seem so different, but really that's still you at the end of the day, you know, and reconciling where that anger comes from and how it's deep down inside you and all that. I think that was done phenomenally well. Gotta give it up to Robert Pattinson, but also like the writing and everything. I feel like the idea of like the colonization and everything they were doing to the creepers was a little more on the like, I'm like, okay, we get it side. Like, again, I think it's a great message, and there was a line that Nasha had particularly that I really, really liked, where they were talking about like something about like extreme force on the aliens and how like they were gonna get rid of the aliens, and she was like, we're the aliens, like this is their planet, we came here, we are the aliens. And I thought that was really good. But there were also some things where they were like, this is wrong, what we're doing is and I'm like, we get that it's wrong, you know what I mean? Like, again, I think like that kind of, the line of like being like, we're the aliens, that's where it's like, oh my gosh, because it's like, yeah, everyone realizes that, but no one's like outright said it. Whereas stuff being like, this is wrong, I'm like, this is wrong. So I just felt that was a little heavy-handed, and I would have liked it if it was a little bit broader strokes, that we could see it instead of actually telling us. I think that would have been better storyline-wise. I also think there were definitely some gaps that I would have liked filled. For example, I think the part in the movie where all of a sudden there's like a rebellion that's been brewing this whole time against the senator guy and his wife, like very convenient timing that like this was suddenly happening, but also like no warning where it came from. And I was also unclear if like they seemed very close to Nasha, like her co-workers, why she wouldn't be part of that and aware that there is an uprising going on. That was just a little too like convenient. I also think the movie could have used a lot less with like the sex scenes and stuff like that. Like the threesome was so weird to me, and I don't necessarily know if a woman had directed that, if that's where exactly you would go thinking about that. But again, I don't know if that's also in the book, but then again, the book is written by a man, so I just think it's weird. I think it's like the idea of like if you had a clone when you kiss your clone, and I'm like, I don't think that's where women go generally. Like they think of like what a clone would be, but I feel like that's kind of where men go. So that felt weird and just unnecessary and uncomfy, honestly. And then speaking of uncomfortable, Kai as a character just did not have a purpose to me. Like, I think she was supposed to be like contrasting between like Nasha, who viewed Mickey 17 and 18 and all the Mickeys as like fully fledged human beings, and it wasn't just like one's replaceable because one dies and you get the memories back. It's like you're still losing a person that's still traumatic for Mickey and all that, versus Kai, who's like, we can split them, like there's two of them, blah blah blah. But I feel like at the end of the day, I just get frustrated when it's like it's another female character that is like all she seems to serve is like just being an adversary to the other female character, who we don't have a lot of them in this, and then also just like wanting to like hook up with Mickey. Like, that was her two personality traits, and I was just like, this character could be more fleshed out, but if she's not, then like, what's the point of having her, was kind of my thing. And then the third thing I didn't like was the whole end, I feel like, started to drag, particularly the dream sequence that Mickey had at the end. I was so confused, like trying to rationalize it in my mind, because it's like, oh, Mark Ruffalo's character is a clone this whole time, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I was like, but wait, they said this lady like killed herself, so why is she showing up? Like, did she fake it? And there was just kind of all this confusion, and then really it was just meaning like showing that Mickey was like standing up for himself finally in his dream, like Mickey 18 would want him to do. But I feel like it would have been more impactful had the dream been about the whole thing with his mom and how he had this guilt that because he pressed a button, like his mom had died, which we kind of briefly heard from Mickey 18 that that wasn't their fault, and like Mickey 18 was fully aware of that, that like it was just a defect with the car or something like that. And I think that would have been more impactful to see Mickey like realize that, and even like that's what I wanted him to talk to Mickey 18 more about. Like, this stuff when it's heavy-handed, I'm like, okay, I get it, but then like that, I'm like, okay, let's dive into that a little bit more, and like again kind of talk about like our anger and like our guilt and how like that is not fair, what happened to you, just like what's happening to you now is not fair. Like, I think that just could have been done a little bit better. But overall, I loved the world building. I loved Nasha as a character. I thought she was so cool, and I really liked the reveal at the end that like she had been there for him through all his deaths and everything. Like, she wasn't just like, well, you're dying, I'll be back when you come back. Like, she stuck with him through like his last moments and everything, when everyone just kind of acted like he's just gonna come back, so what's the big deal, you know? Like, she realized that like that's a person still, it's a person that she truly cares about, and she's gonna be there for him in every single moment, the good and the bad. I feel like the action was really, really great and very tense. I did gasp, I will say, when they were like holding the creeper up, and then Toni Collette's character comes out of nowhere and like cuts the guy's wrist that's trying to hold it up, and it almost fell. Like, I was so stressed. I always love a reveal of like a villain not really being a villain, so I love that the creepers, I mean, I figured out pretty early when they were like lifting him up. I was like, okay, like they're helping him escape, they're not eating him. But I did like the reveal that like they just were trying to exist, you know? And I also like that Mickey figured out they were bluffing at the end when they said like they wouldn't actually be able to like cause a mass explosion with the sound that they make. I think that was very cute, and I also like the idea of them learning to coexist at the end. Like, one of my favorite shots was the scientist girl who was nice to Mickey and helped them and everything, when she's just like holding one like that, because it almost looks like they're like best friends in my mind. Like, they're learning to like communicate as two species and like learn to exist together, and that's just a wonderful message. The little details were really cool too. Like, I like that a lot of the scientists, a lot of the crew and everything like that was young, because there was a big emphasis on like people fleeing Earth for like different reasons or stuff. So I think it would make sense that younger people are kind of looking towards this planet and being like, this is a new way or whatever, whereas like older people would have a hard time either being accepted, because it's like they want like the epitome of people on this, right, like exceptional people, or just had more kind of stakes in staying on Earth. So I thought that was a nice detail, that like they looked young, but it made sense when you think about it, of like why like the young people in particular would be the ones that would be going on this ship. So overall, I do think it was really good, and it was better than I expected it to be based on the reviews that I had been reading and how everyone was disappointed about it. I think again that's because I had lower expectations going into it already. Like, I still expected it to be good, but I wasn't expecting this like super high level sci-fi movie kind of thing where everyone's just mad and shooting stuff and stuff like that. I was expecting a little bit more of a like fun time, a little goofy time with Mickey's little goofy voice and like just goofy things happening. And I think because of that, it met my expectations. And then once I saw that like people weren't liking it, my expectations got kind of lowered. And then when I found out that it was good and it didn't really feel like it dragged, it was way better. So I really, really enjoyed it, and I'm so interested to see what you guys think of it if you have seen it. I definitely want to read the book, like I said, just to see the differences with all that and see how this was adapted from that, because like I said, I think there's so many good ideas in here about science, cloning, what it means to be a person and respect people as people, because it's like the fact of like, yeah, he's gonna come back, but is it still fair that we made the man die from coughing up blood 11 times to get a vaccine? Like, you know, at a certain point, it's like, if you didn't have Mickey, the idea is, would you be doing this, right? Is it like, is it worth it, or is it just like, we're gonna find out if this can happen? And I think it from the very get-go starting to get to the point of like, is this like, we just want to find out if this can happen. You know, Jeff Goldblum's character in Jurassic Park is standing there like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And that's kind of the message of this. So I really, really liked it. I think it's a great movie and really like fun and different from kind of any genre. I think like it's sci-fi, but it's more lighthearted and fun. And it's a movie about colonialism and how that can affect like the environment and the habitating species that's there already and everything. And I just think that's such a timely, important message that was pulled off incredibly, incredibly well. So I really enjoyed it. Yeah, let me know what you all thought about it down below in the comments. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!